Alright, our goal today is to rectify a problem that I affectionately refer to as animal eye. It's the same phenomenon with which you're probably familiar in human beings that we call red eye. And red eye is caused by the proximity of the flash on most point-and-shoot cameras to the lens. In other words, the flash is usually about a half inch or an inch away from the line of vision of the lens. In low light, which is typically when you would be using flash, the pupils of the eye dilate, they get bigger, and the light travels directly into the eye and bounces around the blood vessels at the back of the eye and comes right back out again, thereby creating this very unflattering red pupil of the eye. Animals have a different physiological eye structure, and as a result, we don't get red eye, we get blue eye or green eye or yellow eye, depending on the particular animal. And unfortunately, there's no automated tool in any software program that I'm familiar with to correct that. For humans, we do have red eye correction tools in most software packages that are available today that will automatically remove the red eye with a single click of the mouse. If the auto feature doesn't do it for you, you frequently have a manual control to go along with that so that you can refine or enhance the effect. But for animals, we're kind of stuck, and we get photographs that look something like this. This poor pooch is suffering from a rather dramatic case of animal eye, and there really is no one-click fix with which to deal with this. So how would you do this? Well, you would need to have a software program that allows you to make selections. Selections is a term that refers to a tool that enables you to identify specific parts of the photograph you want to work on and isolate that part of the photograph while the rest of the image remains unchanged. And there are a number of packages, software packages, that allow you to do this. Some of the more common and simpler ones, such as iPhoto for the Macintosh or Picasa for the PC and Macintosh, will not allow you to do this because they do not have precise selection tools. So you'd need something like Photoshop or Photoshop Elements. Corel Painter, I believe, also has this option, something that allows you to make specific and precise selections. In this particular example, we're using Photoshop Elements version 6, but several of the earlier versions, 4, 5, and the more current version or more recent version, Elements 7, can also be used. So any program that has these selection tools will allow you to rectify this problem. So the first step, here we have an animal that has the problem. I'm going to go up here to the zoom tool and simply zoom in on the area that we're most concerned with, in this case the eyes, of course. And in Elements you can, and in Photoshop as well, if you want to scroll around an image that's zoomed in, you can either go up here to the hand tool on the upper left hand side, keyboard shortcut H, or you can simply hold down the space bar and you'll notice that the cursor changes from a plus to a hand, and that allows you to kind of roam around the image at will. Now the selection tool that we'll use for this particular problem in Elements is called the Selection Brush tool, and it's found over here. There's a quick selection tool and a selection brush tool. The selection brush tool is handy because it creates a circle. You can see as I'm moving this cursor around, there's a circle that represents what the selection will be, and we can enlarge or decrease the size of the circle in a couple different ways. The easiest way to affect the size of the tool in this case, or in any case really that uses a brush, is to use the bracket keys. The bracket keys are the kind of like parentheses, except that they're squared off, and they're located just to the right of the letter P, as in Peter key, on your keyboard. And you'll notice if you try that, you use the right bracket key will make the circle larger, the left bracket key will make the circle smaller, and that way you can create a specific selection that corresponds to what you're trying to achieve. Now in this case, you'll notice I'll position it over this eye that circle is too large. I'll hit the left bracket key once, it reduces it, it's still a little too big. I'll hit it again, and now it's actually a little too small. So this preset is too small. Our next closest option is too big. Well, you can refine this by going up here to the options bar at the top of the screen, and you'll see there's a drop-down menu here to select the brush size, little information bar here, and the too large one is 15 pixels. The too small one, whoops, went the wrong way, too small one is 10 pixels, so I'm just going to manually enter an intermediate value. I'll try 13 pixels, and sure enough, since I've done this before, I know for a fact in advance that 13 pixels in this particular case will provide just about the right size circle for our purposes. So I'll position the selection brush right over the eye and just click once, and that creates what we know in what we refer to in Photoshop affectionately as the marching or dancing ants. I prefer marching. It's just a personal preference. And what this means is that it creates this dotted line, so to speak, and whatever's inside this dotted line will be affected by whatever I do next, and all the rest of the image will remain the same. So in other words, I have selected this circular area on which to work, and everything else is going to stay the same. Now I could, for example, simply blacken this eye, darken it to some dark shade of black or a dark brown or something of that sort, but it really wouldn't look natural, because if you think about it, any light source, whether it be electronic flash or even outdoors in the bright sun, any a source of illumination will be reflected in the eyes. It forms what's called a catchlight, a little area in the center of the eye that's bright, no matter what the actual color of the eye is. And if you're curious, I find myself often looking at magazine advertisements. If I like the photograph, I'll look very closely at the eyes, and you can often see in the catchlight a reflection of all the equipment that the photographer used. So if I want to know, did this photographer use a softbox or an umbrella or more than one light, you can actually look in the eyes and you can see in the catchlights the equipment that was used reflected. Anyway, I want to create a catchlight, so I don't want to sort of obliterate this entire area, and in order to do that, I'm going to create a smaller circle in the center. Now I know on the screen here you might not be able to see it, so I'm just going to create a smaller circle over here on the face of the dog, and then I'm going to position it right in the center of the eye, and I'm going to hold down the Alt key on the PC. It would be the Option key on the Mac, and click once. And what that does, by holding down the Alt or the Option key, what that does is actually subtract that smaller circle from the larger selection. So instead of a solid circle, I've now created a kind of donut, or if you're from New York, a bagel-shaped selection on which to work. So I've preserved an area of brightness in the center, and now I can work on the bulk of the pupil of the eye that surrounds it. Now the issue here is this hideous bluish color, this aqua color, and because it's color, I want to get rid of the color. That's the first step. And I can do that in Photoshop Elements in a couple of ways. I can access in the Enhance menu up here at the top of the screen, in the Adjust Color subcategory, there's a flyout menu that allows me to adjust the hue saturation. Keyboard shortcut is Control U. So if I click that, or if I hit Control U, it will bring up this dialog box. And as you may already know, the quickest and easiest way to convert a color image to black and white is to desaturate it, and that means to suck all the color out of it by pulling this saturation slider all the way to the left. And you'll notice the value changes from 0 to -100, and that actually does remove all the color and converts this image to shades of gray. And in this case, it's only converting our selection to shades of gray. It's not necessarily the best way to create a black and white image. In fact, more often than not, it's not the best way, but it's certainly the quickest and easiest way. And for our purposes here, it's certainly a fine way of going about it. So I'll click OK, and now all of the aqua, all the blue is gone from the outside part of my donut here. but of course it's still white. Now I want to get it to a more a darker shade. I'll go back to the Enhance menu, and in the Adjust Lighting category, there's a flyout menu again, and one of the options here is Brightness Contrast. Now, Brightness Contrast is not, among experienced Photoshop users, is not looked on with great fondness. It's a pretty clumsy, global, more or less useless tool that is very rarely employed. But every once in a while, it does have its purpose, and in fact, this is one of those kind of unusual or rare cases. It'll work just fine for our purposes here. So what I'm going to do, I want to make this selection less bright. I want to make it darker. So I'm going to slide that brightness slider all the way to the left. Minus 150 is the maximum value there. I'm going to slide the contrast slider all the way to the right to plus 100. Click OK, because that's as far as I can go. And you notice, it's sort of started to make a change here, but it's still not a very natural looking rendition of the eye. But I can go back and do it again. So I'll just go to Enhance, Adjust Lighting, Brightness Contrast, and you'll notice we're right back where we started with 0 values. I'll just decrease the brightness as far as I can. I'll increase the contrast as high as I can, and you'll notice we've made quite a bit of progress in terms of getting this eye to look the way we would like. We're going to hit it one more time. We'll go back to Enhance, Adjust Lighting, Brightness Contrast, and here I think I'm only going to have to go, maybe not even all the way. I can go down to about 135. I don't even need to hit the contrast slider again. I've pretty much got this the way I want it. And now I'm ready to get rid of the marching ants. I can do that by going up to my Select menu and choosing Deselect, keyboard shortcut Control D, and you'll see the marching ants have disappeared. Now, if you want to get really a fine point about this, if you want to get really expert about it, the center area here, this catch light that we've created, isn't really white. It still has a tinge of the aqua, because remember we subtracted the catch light. So when we from the larger selection, the pupil of the eye. So when we desaturated, the perimeter here was affected, but the center, the catch light, the color was not sucked out of that. So if I like, I can go back to my selection brush, reselect the just that catch light, that little tiny circle, go back to the Enhance menu, Adjust Lighting, once again return to Brightness Contrast. It's getting more use here than it has in years. And now, because I want to make the selection brighter, not darker, instead of sliding the slider to the left, I'll slide it to the right, and I'll just make it a brighter shade and eliminate the turquoise or aqua from the catch light. Once again, I'll hit Control D to rid myself of the marching ants, and you can see I've got a pretty realistic looking eyeball here. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit more so you can see the difference between the two. I've got a realistic looking eye over here on the left, and I've got our original image on the right. If you want to see the the extreme representation of the difference, I'll revert the image to its original form. Go over here, hit Control Z, Control Y, Control Z, Control Y, and you can see that we've made a pretty dramatic change to rectify this particular problem.